So why should we improve our bus network? Based on what was previously discussed in this video, there are lots of things that both Albury and Wodonga can learn from each other. For Wodonga, it can be making the bus network map more readable, like Albury is, and taking advantage of using multiple routes to create good frequency. For Albury, it can be providing more choice in how people get around by bus and providing routes that exclusively serve a certain part of the city that starts and finishes outside of the main city centre, similar in concept to what the Route O is in West Wodonga. There are lots of things that both cities can learn from bigger and more densely populated cities such as Sydney and Perth, and even smaller cities such as Warrnambool. In Sydney and Perth, train stations are often used as a catalyst for development. In Perth only, bus networks usually receive major upgrades whenever a rail project is completed. In Warrnambool, the bus network serves two towns not far from the city, as well as having developments built near it. Firstly, for all the reasons I just discussed, such as making it more convenient and accessible for everyone in Wodonga, many residents and businesses in the urban areas of Wodonga do have access to a bus route. We should aim to streamline our bus routes so it's easy to read on the network map and people will get to places more quickly. Some bus routes are straightforward, such as the Route AW, while other routes like the Route 901 West Albury and the Route G can be complex to read. Secondly, to help improve our urban space, many developments in recent decades were almost always designed only for people who are able to drive, with other modes of transport including public transport taking the back seat and not being provided until much later. We must remember our public transport system problem is only a symptom of a much wider problem with our urban space, and is that we build too many single-use developments instead of flexible mixed-use developments that can be used for multiple purposes, such as an office or a house located above a shop. I'm not sure if anyone remembers the time before the world wars where our urban spaces were designed for people and not private vehicles. Which urban space would you rather visit? A location like Lavington, where most buildings are designed for a single purpose? Or a location like the Albury CBD, where most buildings are designed for mixed usage in mind and most of the car parks are away from the main centre? Thirdly, for the benefit of these groups of people, such as children, teenagers, and other young people such as those in university, older people that can no longer drive or are at risk of not being able to drive, other vulnerable people such as wheelchair users and people with limited mobility, people visiting Wodonga, and anyone else who doesn't have a car. Now, whenever this gets discussed, sometimes people jump to arguments such as, why don't you get a car? Or, why don't you ask a friend, your parent, or family member to take you where you want to go? Or, our population/city isn't big enough. And occasionally you have arguments such as, if you don't like our public transit system, then you shouldn't have moved to our city. And look, there are some values to these arguments, but that doesn't mean we should still consider ways to improve access to public transport in the region. And if you want people to get around independently, then improving our public transport system can only be a good thing. Something we should mention is that demographics of our region have changed over time. This is purely subjective, but let's say you're a family with young primary school age kids that first moved into Clara in 2013. You would have lived in one of the first houses built there. Your family probably would have had a vehicle to drive with to take the kids to school. Let's say our hypothetical family still lives in Clara today. The kids are now teenagers. Let's say the teenagers now want to start hanging out with their friends more often. They'll quickly find out that there is no public transport near their house and they require their parents to take them to their friends. They start hanging out with their friends more often and their parents can't keep up with them. See the problem? This is where not everyone knows what they're signing up for long term. And in this case, our hypothetical family now realizes that they need public transport near them. As of the time this video was made, it has been at least 10 years since the housing estate in Clara started getting built. So a hypothetical 2013 family has lived in the area for 10 years with no access to public transport besides school buses. Country towns such as Tangambalanga in the past 15 years or so have seen more families move into the town. In fact, in the past 5 years alone, the amount of families, particularly younger families living there, has almost doubled since 2016. I think these scenarios are good examples of not everyone knowing what they're signing up for long term when they choose to live away from public and active transport. And let's not forget, there's a cost of living crisis going on right now, and most people have very limited choice of where they can live in the first place, as well as how they get around where they live, and because we're in a cost of living crisis, many people will have to work to make ends meet, which means they likely won't have enough time or energy to help someone who may need to get somewhere important. And finally, for the benefit of the environment, we need to remember that we're in a climate crisis right now too, and improving our public transport network is climate action. Governments around the world, including here in Australia, are in the process of gradually phasing out fossil fuels and switching to renewable energy. Because we need to stop using fossil fuels, we need to switch to the type of fuel our vehicles use from running on petrol and diesel to electric vehicles. Any new bus arriving in Port Wodonga in the next decade will either be a low emissions, hybrid or electric vehicle, and likely any new bus arriving beyond 2030 will almost certainly be electric. So how to cut our public transport emissions has practically been solved. We just need to implement it. We also have another problem, traffic. While we may have saved the environment with electric vehicles, we haven't solved the problem with traffic. Electric cars are great, but if we want less traffic, we need to reduce our dependency on private cars. To do so, we need to redesign our urban spaces so people require a car less for their lifestyles.